JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from January 8th, 2021, and I'm recording this on July 7th, 2021. I give those dates so that we know when this information was most relevant. In this case, I am recording this on the 7th on a Wednesday, which is earlier than normal. Had to do that just because of my schedule. But as always, we're still looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. Why do we do this look back? So we look back at the comics that were hot 6 months ago, see what factors made them hot then, see what's happened to them since, so that we can all make better decisions about which books we chase in the moment and which books we're just patient on. So without further ado, we got 17 books to talk about this week. So let's get into this week's list. First up, we got a repeat from last week. We have Department of Truth #1. This is hitting the list again because there was bidding going on related to optioning this property. That has concluded at this point. I couldn't remember for sure last week, but yes, it did. Someone did get the rights. This week it was going up to $15 for raw copies on average, with 9.8 hitting 90, which last week it was doing about 10. So just up a little bit, but still lots of sales. Very active on this book this week. Now raw copies are 30 to 50. 9.8s are 110 to 150. So this one is up. It has definitely been street cash over the last 6 months in terms of, providing additional value. I would say I wouldn't be surprised if this book gets another little bit of a bump at least. But right now it's doing pretty well for a book that's, about a year old. So, next we have Cobra Kai. The Karate Kid saga continues. This hit the list because season 4, as season 3 was wrapping up, they announced that there would be a season 4. Back then, raw copies were going for $15. 9.8 is hitting 70. We've moved away. We're between seasons right now. The interest in this book has waned just a little bit. It's a $5 to $10 book now. 9.8s are 40 to 60. So this is definitely an I'll be back. It's down a little bit. We're between moments, and I'm sure it'll surge again when season 4 comes out, and then potentially there'll be a lull again after that. So next we're going to move into our first of several covers that we're going to talk about this week. We have crossover #3, the McFarlane foil, 1 per store, with Spawn on the cover. Raw copies of this were going for $100 out the gate. Those Spawn fans love their books. Now it's a $50 to $80 book with a 9.8 going for $220. So this is definitely down and a bit of an I'll be back. Our next cover is Iron Man #5, Frank Cho 1 in 25 variant. This is a drawing of Hellcat. This book was super hot when it came right out the gate, going for $50 to $80. Now raw copies are going 40 to 90, so basically in that same range. So it's been pretty steady. 9.8, there's been just a couple sales. They've been around $200. So this has been a very popular Frank Cho cover. It's one of those that went to double, triple ratio and kind of stayed there. Typically, that triple ratio is what it usually takes. Just kind of stay in that double to triple range. So this one's doing pretty good for a 1 in 25. Next, we have Star Wars #10, the Terry Dodson 1 in 25. This is a cover of Leia. This one also kind of did the 50 to 70 game right out of the gate, but this one has not maintained. Raw copies now go for 10 to 20. 9.8 are going for 80 to 200. So this is down. I mean, really, a 10 to 20, it's basically a trap at this point. So if you chased it for 50 to 70 and it's now 10 to 20, you definitely didn't get your value worth. I will say that up until like mid-May, it was still going in that $40 range. It's really just the last part of May and here in June that it's really dropped down to a $10 to $20 book. Our next cover is America #1, the action figure variant of her first solo title. So this action figure variant is a little harder to find than the regular cover, and it was going for $60 to $100 back then. And this one has been pretty steady also, staying in that $50 to $90 range. 9.8 did go for $500, but that's just a single sale. So yeah, so this is obviously this cover is obviously kind of tied to the MCU news that she would be making an appearance in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, but this particular cover didn't make the list. Next, we have Something is Killing the Children, #5. This is just the A cover. We talked about this a little bit when it was on the Books of 2020 list that Tom put out just a couple weeks ago. Raw copies back then were hitting $90, as we talked about 2 weeks ago. This book is $150 to $250 book now for raw copy. 9.8s are $450 to $500. This is way up. This book is in straight cash. There was one sale of a raw copy that was down around 100, but for the most part, it's been way up from what it was before. Everything Something's Killing Children has been super hot. This cover is no exception. Our last cover of the week is Usagi Yojimbo number 16, the John Sanluccio 1 in 10. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce that name. $40 for a raw copy, $40 to $50 for a raw copy here at release. Now it's a $15 to $30 book, so this is definitely becoming I'll Be Back. A cool cover. There's been a lot of cool Usagi covers in this new IDW run. This is just one of those, and it's doing pretty well for a 1 in 10 still at 15 to 30, just not near what it was doing when it first came out. With that, we're going to move into a little bit of comic buzz. First, we have The Paybacks number 1. And this hit the list because of that crossover number 3 we were talking about earlier, not the cover, but because in that book, some of these characters made an appearance. So Donny Cates kind of tying his two series together caused new interest in this older book. Raw copies were going for $10 to $20 back then. Now it's a $1 to $10 book. None of this was sustained. 9.8s, there has been a $130 and $150 sale, but just those two sales. So this has definitely been an I'll Be Back, a book that you can get now for basically cover, plus shipping in most cases. So yeah, not a lot of going on here. This definitely didn't maintain any momentum. Next, we have All-Star Comics number 58. The first appearance of Power Girl. Not sure why this was jumping, but just there was a whole bunch of sales. Books started moving, a little bit of momentum, and basically raw copies were going for an average of 150. 9.8s were doing 1,500. Now raw copies are 60 to 200, but I would say on average you're sitting around $80 to $100 for a raw copy. Except for really high grade stuff around 200. Most copies, even very fine ones, are sitting at 100-ish kind of range. But 9.8s have went up. The most recent 9.8 sales have both been a little over $2,000. So you could, this is one of those weird ones. I put it as down. I'll be back because the vast majority of sales on this book are raw sales or lower graded books. There's only been a couple of 9.8 sales, so that's why I put this as down, even though the 9.8s have continued to climb. Our last comic buzz book of the week is Dark Knight's Death Metal number 7, because this has a cameo of the new Wonder Girl, Yara Flor. There is an image of her in this book, which caused this book to jump to a $10 to $20 book. It's still set in $5 to $20. 9.8, so this will run you $60 to $80. So this has been pretty steady, and I'll be back. Like I said, it's just an image showing like different things going on in the multiverse. So this one definitely has, been pretty steady. There is some interest in this new Wonder Girl. We'll see how long it lasts. We'll see how good this series with Joelle Jones is doing. It's off to a good start. So we'll see if this character continues to drive some interest and it causes this book to jump a little more. With that, we're going to move into a little bit of Sony Spider-Man news, and that is Amazing Spider-Man number 365. This is the first preview of Spider-Man 2099. This book has hit the list a couple of times back after the Into the Spider-Verse movie where he made a little cameo in the credits. Well, basically they were started about that they were, a year away from this movie or something, and they sent out an image of this character. The directors did, so that caused renewed interest in this book. $15 to $20 raw. 9.8 hit 260, and this book has continued to go. Now raw copies are 10 to 75, but so still low end copies are still going kind of in that same range as before, but it's, this is a pretty condition sensitive book. But 9.8s are up to $400 to $500, so this one is definitely continued to climb. It is definitely up. Our other book that was kind of, in case our only real MCU related book, I should say, this week is Truth, Red, White, and Black number 1. First appearance of Isaiah Bradley, the other Captain America. And this was before Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The people were specking on this character being in the show. We knew there was casting. We suspected that's who the guy was playing. Was it Carl Lumley? I think that's the actor's name. And he did appear. So back then it was a $15 book. 9.8s were going to $2 to $250. Now it's a $15 to $40 book for raw copy. 9.8s are $400 to $500. This is so way up compared to 6 months ago, but actually down a little bit from the peak during the show. But it has definitely maintained pretty well overall interest here since the show has come and gone, but it is definitely trending back down a little bit. So up overall for the 6 months, but back down a little bit from where it peaked around the show. So the last 4 books on the list are all Star Wars related, and really a lot of it had to do with what was going on, the release, or at least 3 of the books kind of had to do with the release of a new series back in January. Those will be the last 2 books we talk about. But first up, Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi, Force Storm #1. This is the second print of the Origin of the Jedi Order. And this was basically the High Republic series was coming out, which was kind of an older, different timeline. So there was kind of some renewed interest in this Origin of the Jedi Order. Back then, raw copies, according to CBSI, raw copies were going for raw copy went for $350. I really wonder about this because right now raw copies are going 50 to 60. 9.2 just went for 100. There really wasn't a higher graded copy sold recently. So if it really dropped this much, that's definitely a dumpster fire. I wonder about that price listing that they gave. It is what they said, but boy, that seems like a huge decline if that was the case. It might have been an outlier. It might have been some shenanigans. I don't know what was going on with that sale. But so definitely one to question really if it's down this much or if there was something weird going on back then. Next we have Star Wars Jedi of the Republic Mace Windu #5. And this is the first appearance of Ahsoka in Marvel Comics, kind of a cameo appearance. We just kind of get her image again. But she'd obviously previously appeared in Dark Horse Comics, in the Clone Wars run by Dark Horse. This was her first kind of in Marvel canon appearance. So raw copies of this were going for $80 to $130 back then because people can't afford her actual first appearance, so they were looking for something else. Now raw copies are $40 to $70. 9.8s are $200 to $300. So this has definitely been an I'll be back, down a little bit. My guess is when her show starts coming out, this book will probably jump again. And then our last 2 books of the week are, as I talked about, High Republic coming out. They are both the main cover. First is the main cover of Star Wars High Republic #1. And really, you could have put almost any cover on this list. We're going to talk about they talked about the main, the cover A. Cover A was going for $15 right out the gate. Raw copies now are sitting $10 to $25. 9.8s are only running $50 to $90. But still definitely a lot of interest in this series, in this book. The series has been pretty good. I really enjoyed it. So several first appearances here. So my guess is this book maybe has some long-term spec to it. It just depends. There's definitely a lot of these printed, and but there are a lot of first appearances. And if they ever try to take any of the High Republic stuff live action, my guess is this book will definitely jump. Star Wars High Republic #1, the 1 in 25, also was on the list this week. Raw copies of the 1 in 25 were going $70. And this is another one that's really maintained. It's $40 to $90 right now, but with most of the sales in that $60, $70 range. 9.8s of this will run you $150 to $200, excuse me. So another book that's been pretty steady, kind of an I'll be back because you have been able to find some deals. But that is this week's list. 17 books, several Star Wars books there to end, a bunch of covers this week. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you next time.